And Tarkus is like, what smells like asparagus? He notices the kid. He's like, you, what are you doing here? And he's like, you're a bully. And I'm gonna help my friend Jojo and my friends outside. And Tarkus is like, ha, no. And Tarkus proceeds to beat the shit out of this kid. He grabs him, punches him, and again, Tarkus is like 10 feet tall, 800 pounds of pure muscle. Poco is like, I don't know, 4 foot nothing, 70 pounds soaking wet, less than that. And Tarkus then lifts him up, throws him across the wherever they are in the room, hits the back of his head, starts profusely bleeding, but he says to himself, pain, I'm not scared of the pain. It means nothing to me. And Tarkus is like, holy shit, this kid's a badass. And now, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Episode 6. So give you a brief recap of the previous events of last episode. Dio is indeed alive. He's revealed himself to JoJo and Speedwagon and Zappelli. And he also has command over the undead. We saw that previously when he was able to turn Jack the Ripper to be one of his acolytes, if you will. But now he's just basically able to summon zombies, chap. And many, you run-of-the-mill zombies, I hunger for your flesh, brains, all yada yada, all that good stuff. But he's also able to summon very powerful zombies. In this case, he summoned 2 very powerful zombies in Sir Buford and Sir Tarkus, chap, who are these knights who once served Mary Queen of Scots, good old Mary Stuart, chat. Got her head chopped off by, her half-sister or whatever, Elizabeth I. And they themselves were killed. And they died with vengeance in their heart. They died angry, right? And Dio has harnessed that anger. And he said, hey, I know you're really angry, but I want you to direct that anger. I want you to direct that anger to JoJo. Good old Jonathan Joestar and Speedwagon and Zappelli and that fucking little kid that's hanging out with them too. That was part of my trap. I want you to target them. I want you to end them. And they said, sir, even though we've only been alive for maybe a couple minutes, we will do just that. And they proceeded to engage in combat. At least one of them did, Buford. Buford engaged JoJo in combat. Buford has this ability to use Herman energy, a.k.a. Ripple energy, depending on if you're watching the sub or the dub version, whatever you want, chat. But he's able to use Herman energy to manipulate his hair, which he can grow like a fucking Super Saiyan, chat. It doesn't glow yellow, at least not yet. But he can manipulate, he can grow larger, and he can, attach to people and throw them around. He can use his hair to beat the hell out of people. That's what he was doing with JoJo. And inevitably ends up throwing him into this nearby river, and they're fighting below. But JoJo's like, you don't know about my own skills with that Herman energy, and he is able to use his most powerful technique yet until the next scene where that's when he does his next most powerful technique. But he does his underwater turquoise overdrive Baja Blast from Taco Bell, and he hits good old Sir Buford right in his fucking face, right there, and he shoots up into the sky, blasts out of the river, lands on the bay, lands on a rock. And JoJo, he jumps out. He's like, I probably have killed this guy, but he doesn't kill him. Far from it. Good old Sir Buford, he gets up. He does have a mark on his head. He does have a mark. All that overdrive, all that Baja Blast for a drop of blood. And JoJo's like, shit. And he's like, that's not good. And then Buford, he then uses his hair. He's like, that's not going to affect me. You're going to need more Herman energy than that. He then uses his hair to entrap JoJo, and he starts tightening around JoJo's body. And he starts to get so tight, attaches him to this tree, and his hair wraps around this tree and stuff. And he's tightening his hair so much that the trunk of the tree is buckling under the strain, the tightness. The branches of the tree are snapping, chat, and so is JoJo's body. It's cutting through the branches and starts to cut through. It cuts through the clothes of JoJo and starts cutting into his skin, starting to his skin and meat, his man meat, chat, and his tissue, and all this blood starts spraying out. He's like, holy shit, he's going to just chop me up with his hair. I'm going to have to somehow free myself. And thank God, Chad, because I've been observing this for the past 6 episodes, including this episode, right? So we're about five and a quarter episodes in. And I've noticed that JoJo has just the largest thighs. He's got some major thighs and just the largest calves I have ever seen on an anime protagonist, Chad. It's like this guy is the definition of swole. Holy shit. JoJo, Joestar, he does not skip leg day, Chad. Because if he skipped one leg day, he would not be able to do what he just does here. And he using the power of his thighs, using the power of his calves, he starts to stretch them, Chat. He stretches them, and he snaps the hair. He snaps the hair, the hairy bonds of Buford. And Buford, who was eating himself towards JoJo, did not expect this because no one's ever done that with his hair before because his hair is tough. It's got that Herman energy, but it doesn't matter. He snaps it, and JoJo then proceeds to do another... golden sunlight overdrive punch. He's like, I've revved this thing up, and boom! He then punches the arm of Buford. Is like, you need to do more than that. Oh, wait. And his arm just starts bubbling and pulsating, and all these like weird, almost looks like boils start popping up on it, chat. And I was like, that doesn't look good. And his arm starts to melt off. He's like, oh my God! And his arm melts off his body. Everyone's like, whoa, holy shit. And obviously, Sir Buford, he freaks out a little bit because, you know, his arm melted off. And he's like, oh, the pain, it's terrible. And he feels that. And he goes to attack JoJo, but this gives JoJo's pause. It's like, he can feel this, but how can he? He's a zombie. Zombies don't feel, apparently established in the previous episode. They don't feel anything. Unless, and as Buford is about to just land this hit, he has this giant sword. He's about to use his sword to slash JoJo, put an end to him once for all, ending the Joestar family dynasty forever. Instead of blocking that blow, instead of punching Sir Buford in his face, chat, JoJo instead, he drops to one knee and kneels. He kneels in front of Buford, and Buford, he stops, he's about to full swing, but he stops and only kind of cuts the face of JoJo. And Buford's like, why did you stop? Why'd you do that? And JoJo tells him, he's just like, I don't want to hurt an honorable person like yourself, Sir Buford. You are not a creation of evil. You are not a zombie. You are not the servant of Dio. You are an honorable knight of Mary Stuart, Mary Queen of Scots. And the fact that you could feel pain, that proves that you are becoming human. And we start to see Che. Oh, he is starting to become like more human. It's like, holy shit. And like there's actually light in his eyes now. His skin color is getting more vibrant. Doesn't look like just a gray, clammy, zomboid sumbitch. And Buford, he lowers his weapon. He's like, oh my God, you're right. I haven't felt alive since, since the last days when I saw my beloved Mary Queen of Scots, good old Mary Stuart. And he's like, I just haven't been given a lot of respect for being a knight in so long. And JoJo is just like, well, that's what you deserve, good sir. That's what you deserve. And then and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, Buford's legs start to melt. He's like, God, and he falls over, and they start to melt. But he manages to get himself up in a sitting position. He's pretty much just a torso. He's a torso with an arm now and a head and stuff. And he's like, that's probably not good. And he's like, hey, you know what, man? You know what? I really appreciate all the kind things you're saying to me right now. I did not expect it to take this turn, but I feel like I'm finally coming to peace with what happened and dying. I'm not as angry anymore just because you acknowledged what I've done and what it means to be a knight. And you know what? I got this big ass sword, and JoJo's like, that's a pretty big ass sword. Yeah, this is a sword that was given to me by the Queen of Scots, good old Mary Stuart. It's called Luck. Oh no, I think it's called Lucky. The sword's called Lucky. And he's like, I want to give it to you. But before I do so, I'm going to use my melty arm goop blood, and I'm going to name it Plucky. I'm going to name it Plucky because you, sir, are plucky. You, sir, are courageous. And so he takes his goopy arm blood and he puts a P on the sword where it says luck. He puts a P in front. And he's like, there you go. And Jojo's like, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. He's like, no problem. Well, time to die. And he just dies. And he just starts melting, and eventually what's ever left, it just turns into dust, turns into fairy dust, chat. And we see him, and it's like, oh, he goes to the great unknown. He goes to the great beyond. But what a way to end a conflict between the characters. Just showing some guy some respect, just acknowledging him and saying like, hey, these other people, what was done to you, that's not all you. All right, there's more to you. And look at that, Jojo being very, very smart and very caring. I dug that. Tarkus, he's like, what the fuck? He's pissed off. He doesn't like, Buford, having that self-actualization and realizing like, oh yeah, I'm not these things. I'm not these, these things that have defined me in the past. I can be more than that. And Tarkus is like, fuck that, and he smashes the remains of Buford underfoot, and he goes to attack Jojo. Jojo retreats because he is injured. He is injured after his battle with Buford. It did fuck him up a little bit. His thighs, Chad, took a lot of work to cut that hair, to get out of that hair trap there, and he jumps back, and he's with Zappelli and Speedwagon and Poco. By the way, that kid is still there. Poco, still there. Puko, whatever the fuck his name is, still there. And they are about to be attacked by Tarkus, who's like 10 feet tall, 800 pounds, pure fucking muscle, Chad. It's like, if he attacks us, we're all gonna die. But thankfully, good old Zappelli, he noticed there's a lot of leaves around us. I'm just going to use my Herman energy, and I'm going to create like a giant leaf thing. And he creates this giant leaf that he insists everyone grab onto the leaf, and they all grab onto the leaf. And as Tarkus slams, onto their where they were standing, the whole like canyon starts breaking apart and stuff. It's like, oh shit, chaos causes like a mini earthquake. They float away. They float away on the giant leaf. As Tarkus is like, the fuck? How did you do that? And even Speedwagon, who is like holding on to Zappelli for dear life, because he hasn't mastered Herman energy. Same with Paco or Puko, whatever the hell his name is. And he asks Zappelli, how are you able to harness Herman energy to create a giant leaf out of many leaves? And Zappelli, he's like, that's a great question, and proceeds not to tell him. Instead, he has a flashback. Chat, and we learn he learned it from an Indian sailor, chat. Apparently, them Indians from India, they have mastered Herman energy. And he observed this as a much younger man. This is after his father and his archaeological expedition, and the crew of the ship were all killed by the vampires, right? And he's trying to figure out a way to find out where this mask is, but he knows he's got to train himself, and he observes this wise Indian man who fancies himself a doctor, and he watches this Indian man, this sailor. He uses Herman energy to heal this man's leg that was infected and just goopy, and it's not melted yet, not like Buford, but it was kind of melty and goopy. But he heals it, and Zappelli's like, "Holy shit, man! How'd you do that?" And he's like, that's Herman energy." And he's like, "Can you teach me?" And he's like, "Nah, nah, I can't teach you." But my quest is not yet done. However, there is someone that can teach you. Is the master that taught me. You got to go to an ancient monastery in Asia. And he's like, okay, I'll go to Asia, and I'll find this ancient monastery, which he then proceeds to do so. Chad, takes him some time. He gets there, and he's like, cool. He goes inside this massive structure, this giant monastery, and it's like, typical. He got all these candles everywhere. He got all these followers, and they're practicing Herman energy. And he goes up to this monk whose name is Ton Petty. Good old Ton Petty, chat. And he's like, Master Ton Petty, my name is Zappelli. I wish to learn Herman energy. And Ton Petty is like, oh, yes, you will. Yes, I've been waiting for you, Zappelli. And he's like, you know who I am? Oh, he's like, I know who you will be. And you will become a master of Herman energy, but you will also die at a certain point. And he's like, oh, boy, are you going to share that with me? Yes. but not until later on in the episode. And Speedwagon is like, are you having a flashback? You can tell me how you did this. And he's like, oh, sorry, I got train of thought. Lost my train of thought. My apologies. But before he can explain how he created the giant leaf using Heyman energy and basically just telling us, what we already saw, Tarkus is like, fuck your giant leaf. He leaps off of some debris and jumps on top of the leaf and starts like destroying it, but like zombie energy and Heyman energy, chat, do not mix. Just ask fucking Buford when his body started melting. But does not mix, and he's repelled. However, the giant glowing leaf is damaged, and they're like, we're gonna be crashing. Thankfully, there's like this castle that's built into the canyon wall. It's on the opposite side of the ravine that they were in. And it's like, let's just land there. And so they fall onto this balcony. They're all okay. But Tarkus, he's still falling, misses the balcony. He hits the side of the castle, chat. He hits the side of the castle. Like, well, I'm sure he's dead. I'm sure we won't need to check. I was like, fuck, he's alive. And we see Tarkus. Again, I've noticed JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They really love doing this certain thing. It is pretty cool. But they love having a villainous character like walk up or crawl up a vertical surface and just be so determined. We previously saw this in episode 3 when Dio is just kind of nonchalantly like walking up the wall as the Joestar mansion's burning down. It's pretty goddamn cool. But we see Tarkus. He doesn't have as much swagger. He doesn't have as much swagger as a 18th century, late 19th century vampire. However, he is pretty cool as he's just kind of Spider-Manning his way up the side of this wall. We're like, oh shit, we're gonna have to somehow fight Tarkus when he's up there, but we're all weakened, right? Now, as Tarkus is crawling up there, he's like, I can't wait to kill these guys. But then he gets a whiff. He gets a whiff of that a stench, and he notices to his immediate left, there is a massive, what I would call a poop chute, right? So I don't know if you know this, chat, in like medieval castles and stuff, they didn't have bathrooms. They didn't have like, piping and all that. And of course not. They had like these places where it'd be a hole in the castle, maybe like a plank of wood would be there. And you shit in the hole, and the hole would go all the way down. And it'd be like a big old shit pile, right? Maybe like almost like a slip and slide of shit. And he notices there's a poop chute. He's like, I can get into the castle via the poop chute. And so instead of climbing up the wall and killing those guys, he's like, I'm gonna take the crapper. And he instead inserts himself in the poop chute and climbs up of it, Chad, just getting hit with urine and feces, just lathered in it, Chad. And they're like, well, I'm sure he's gone forever. And so Jojo, he's like, we should find a way, up. Let's go into the castle. So Jojo, they're on the balcony, and there's this door, and Jojo opens the door, and he's the first one that proceeds in, and then the door immediately shuts. And he's like, what the hell? What happened? And he's like, what's that smell? And then Tarkus reveals himself. And I don't know how the fuck Tarkus got up there so quickly. I'm not sure, chat. But he reveals himself. He's like, it's me, Duty. And it's like, oh my God, he's completely covered in feces, chat. Human feces, urine, all of it. He looks gross, and I'm sure he smells really bad. And what he ends up doing is he has this choker that's connected to this chain and like a shackle. And he puts it on JoJo's neck, and JoJo doesn't react in time to stop or step back. He just boop, it connects, and then Tarkus puts on a similar chain and shackle on his neck, and he's like, all right, dude, we're gonna fucking fight to the death. I trained in this castle. This is where the greatest knights of the land were trained, and we're gonna participate in, this is his words, chat, a chain neck death match. So basically, it's two people attached, to the same chain, one on either side, and the shackle. It's like some kind of apparatus. So if you move back, for instance, then the person who's on the other side has to move forward. So that's what's going on. And JoJo again is still weakened from his fight with Buford. And Tarkus takes advantage of this and just pulls the chain, so it forces JoJo up, and he's swinging. He's choking to death now, and he can't use his Heyman energy, Chad, because it's making it too difficult for him. Because if he lets go to use it, Tarkus will break his neck. And it's well, this is a very bad situation. Zappelli and Speedwagon, they're like, shit, he's alive. I should have known. It smelled really bad in there. It smelled like duty. And they're trying to get in, but For whatever reason, Zappelli, this is weird. Zappelli says, I can't break down this door. Herman energy cannot be used for destructive purposes. And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean? What do you mean it can't be used for destructive purposes? I just saw JoJo 5 minutes ago at most, melt a guy's arm with Herman energy. So I'm like, Zappelli, like, I don't know what you mean, destructive and non-destructive. He melted a guy's arm. Maybe it means, like, I can't bust down this door. Or maybe he's weakened. But it was a very weird thing. Maybe it could have been the sub. What it could have been is I'm watching this subbed, all right? And I even noticed there's mistakes in the sub. Like, they have different names for certain characters or misspellings. And so for all I know is, that's not actually what he said. So, the sub could have fucked up. But I was just like, I don't think that's true. Herman energy is like, it has peaceful purposes, sure. But I saw it melt a guy's arm. So, I don't know. But he can't get in. Speedwagon is just, Speedwagon can't do anything. Speedwagon's there for moral support at this point. That's what he's been doing. He's the guy that will be in your corner. He'll support you. He'll cuddle you after your childhood home has been burned down. That's what he's there for. I'm sure he'll be more competent in later episodes. I'm sure. We cut to Poco. Poco, what's he doing? Because he's been there, but I haven't really focused on him at all. And we cut to him, and he's like, and then the camera then moves down, and we focus on his groin. I'm just like, what are you doing, JoJo? And he proceeds to piss himself. He pees all over himself. He shits himself. He's like, oh, this bowel movement. I'm just like, oh my God, what is this episode? And he's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. And then he has a flashback. He has a flashback because after he pissed and he shit himself, he feels very weak. He feels like how he did like all this time ago. And we see him like in town, and these 5 fucking bullies. These 5 bullies assault him and proceed to beat the shit out of him. And he tries to fight back, but it's very difficult, and he gets very scared. But then suddenly this young woman arrives, and the boys are like, oh, shit! And they just scatter. And we learn that this young woman is actually Poco's older sister. And she goes to check on her brother, and she's like, you gotta learn to stand up against them. And he's like, I couldn't. There was 5 of them, and what they were doing was very painful. And then she slaps him across the face. And I'm like, what's going on here? Poor Poco. He's getting a lot of abuse this episode. And she slaps him across the face. He's like, little brother. She grabs him. She grabs him by the lapel. He's like, listen to me. He's like, okay. What's on? The scariest thing in your mind, pain? He's like, yeah. He is just like, well, don't be afraid of pain. Once you're not afraid of pain, then nothing is scary anymore. You can survive anything. You just have to keep fighting, little brother. But just learn that pain itself is not scary. It's a tool used by evil people and by bullies. And once they realize that you're not scared of the pain that they can put upon you, then they themselves will not be scared. He's like, okay. And so I guess he's like, yes. And we cut back to the present. And he's like, yes, sister, that physical abuse made me realize something. I need to stand up for not only myself, but also my new friends, JoJo and Speedwagon and Zappelli. So I will go into a poop chute. And so he finds, actually it's not a poop chute, it's a window. He finds a window. And he realizes he wants to tell Zappelli and Speedwagon, but they're too big, they're too thick. As we all know, Chad, they're very muscular boys in this show. And he's like, well, I got to go in there. And so he proceeds to the window, and Zappelli and Speedwagon, what's that smell? Somebody needs asparagus? Oh, Poco, what are you doing? And he goes inside the window, Chad, and he drops in right next to Tarkus and JoJo, who's still choking. And Tarkus is like, what smells like asparagus? He notices the kid. He's like, you, what are you doing here? And he's like, you're a bully. And I'm gonna help my friend JoJo and my friends outside. And Tarkus is like, ha, no. And Tarkus proceeds to beat the shit out of this kid. He grabs him, punches him, and again, Tarkus is like 10 feet tall, 800 pounds of pure muscle. Poco is like, I don't know, 4 foot nothing, 70 pounds soaking wet, less than that. And Tarkus then lifts him up, throws him across the wherever they are in the room, hits the back of his head, starts profusely bleeding, but he says to himself, pain, I'm not scared of the pain. It means nothing to me. And Tarkus is like, holy shit, this kid's a badass. And like probably exposed brain, like serious concussion. His one pupil is much larger than the other at this point. Tarkus then watches this kid, is probably 8 or 7 years old, drag himself over to the lever, pulls the lever, wrong lever. It's actually the right lever, chat, which then opens the door for Speedwagon and for Zappelli. But Tarkus is so like, holy shit, pain don't hurt. That's what the kid learned. Pain don't hurt. Pain don't hurt. But Tarkus is so taken aback from this, he pauses, and this allows JoJo some slack, and he's able to gain a little ground. He's no longer choking, right? And Speedwagon, or it could be JoJo, they go over to Poco, and they're like, you did good, kid, you did good. And he's like, did I do good, big sister? He's like, I'm not your sister, I think you have a concussion. He's like, I definitely do. And Zappelli's like, hold on, everybody, stand back. This will be my final moment. And they're like, what do you mean, Zappelli? And then we get a flashback, which I don't know if he's saying any of these things, but we get a flashback to Mr. Tunpenny, the monk. And Tunpenny is like, you will meet your end at a certain moment, and you will know. You'll know the moment when you smell it. And he's like, this is the moment. It smells like poop. It smells like urine. And it smells like asparagus. This is my end. And so we might see the death, chat. The death of Master Zappelli, who we've only come to meet just a couple episodes ago. But that episode is not yet, chat. We don't know the fate of Master Zappelli. And if this is indeed his end. We shall see. Only he knows. He'll only know. Like he said, like his master said, you'll know it when you smell it. And it's very, very smelly. And that, my friends, is my scene by scene by scene breakdown to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And it is bizarre. This is a bizarre one. That asparagus pea smell. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Oh, so what you saying? Thank you for the very kind Ray. Good to see you here. What are you playing? More Skyrim? Welcome. Who else is here? Nacho Mama Gaming, welcome to the show. I'm sorry that I missed you before. My apologies. Usually when I do my reviews, I turn off notifications just so I can concentrate. But so good to have you both here. I hope you're doing very well. Malcolm, did I do a good job? I probably did a really good job. I probably nailed all the names and stuff and all the moves and sequences. Hell yeah. But yeah, no, JoJo's been fun. JoJo's been a fun animated review chat. And also, I've really enjoyed doing Madoka Magica. Both been great. Very different from each other, but still very entertaining. It was great. Yay! Thank you. Thank you, chap.